Hey, so just stay here with me for a little while longer. Not because you need to solve anything right now, and not because there's something you still have to figure out before you can rest, but simply because your heart has been carrying too much for too long. And maybe tonight is the first moment in a while where you're actually being given permission to pause. And as everything around you slowly becomes quieter, I want you to gently notice something. You are here. Not in the past anymore. Not inside everything that went wrong today, and not fully lost in tomorrow either. Just here, in this moment, breathing, existing, still moving forward, even if it doesn't feel strong right now. And maybe that already says more about your strength than you realize. Because even tired hearts still show up. Even overwhelmed minds still keep going. Even silent struggles still somehow make it through another day. And that is not small. That matters more than you think. You may not have said everything you felt today. You may not have had the words to explain what was happening inside you. But God saw it all. Every moment you stayed quiet when you wanted to speak. Every moment you smiled when your mind felt heavy. Every moment you tried to hold yourself together when no one else noticed what it cost you. Nothing about that was hidden from him. And he didn't step back from you because of it. He didn't distance himself because you were struggling. He stayed close, even in the parts of your day where you felt most unseen. And maybe that's hard to fully understand in a world where people's attention changes so quickly, where care sometimes feels conditional, where presence doesn't always last. But God is not like that. His nearness is not fragile. It doesn't disappear when you feel weak. It doesn't fade when you feel confused. It doesn't wait for you to become perfect before it shows up. It is steady, even now, even here, even in this quiet moment where you are finally slowing down enough to feel what you've been carrying. So you don't have to rush out of this moment. You don't have to push yourself into fixing your thoughts. You don't have to force clarity or strength or even motivation. Right now, it is enough that you are here, and that you are breathing, and that you are still held by a God who has never once lost sight of you. And as you begin to accept that slowly, gently, something inside starts to soften. Not because everything outside has changed, but because you are no longer standing in it alone the way you thought you were. And as you stay in this quiet space a little longer, I want you to slowly let your thoughts settle, not by force, not by pressure, but in the same gentle way that a tired child finally rests when they know they are safe. Because that is what this moment is becoming, not a place of struggle, not a place of performance, but a place of safety. And maybe for a long time, your mind has forgotten what safety feels like on the inside. You've been living in a rhythm of responsibility, carrying things, fixing things, thinking ahead, reacting quickly, staying alert. And even when the day ends, your thoughts don't always end with it. They continue quietly, sometimes loudly, repeating what still needs attention, what still feels uncertain, what still feels unfinished. And slowly, without even realizing it, your heart starts to believe that rest is something you have to earn instead of something you are allowed to receive. But right here, in this moment, nothing is being demanded from you. You are not being asked to prove anything. You are not being asked to carry everything. You are not being asked to hold the weight of tomorrow while you are still sitting in today. And maybe that is why this stillness feels different. Because it is not asking for your strength. It is inviting your surrender. Not in a forced way, not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet way that gently says, you can put it down now. All the invisible pressure you've been carrying. All the silent expectations you placed on yourself. All the thoughts that told you you have to stay strong no matter what. Just for a moment, you can loosen your grip. And I want you to understand something very softly, without any heaviness attached to it. God is not waiting for you to become perfect before He is near to you. He is not standing at a distance, observing whether you are handling everything correctly. He is not measuring your worth based on how well you manage today. He is simply here, already present, already aware, already close to everything you are feeling, even the parts you cannot fully explain. Because His presence has never been dependent on your performance. It has always been rooted in His love. A love that does not change when you feel tired. A love that does not withdraw when you feel overwhelmed. A love that does not fade when your thoughts become heavy. So maybe instead of trying to fix yourself in this moment, you can simply allow yourself to be with Him. Not as someone who has everything together, but as someone who is real, honest, and human. And in that honesty, there is no rejection waiting for you. There is no disappointment waiting for you. There is only presence. Steady, patient, unchanging presence. And as you let that truth slowly sink deeper into your heart, you may begin to notice something shifting inside. Not everything outside, but something within you starting to relax, as if your soul is finally remembering that it doesn't have to fight to be held. It already is. And as we continue a little deeper into this quiet moment together, I want you to gently notice how your breathing is already beginning to change, even if just slightly, even if almost unnoticeably at first. Because when a heart starts to feel safe, the body slowly follows. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens in small, soft layers, like tension that has been held for too long finally starting to loosen its grip without you even forcing it. And maybe that is what you didn't realize you needed tonight. Not more thinking, not more fixing, not more analyzing your life, but simply a space where your inner world is allowed to slow down without being judged for it. You have spent so much of your time being on, responding, managing, adjusting, carrying, planning, always aware of what needs to be done next. And even when you try to rest, your mind sometimes forgets how to fully step out of that mode. It keeps scanning, keeps thinking, keeps replaying things that already happened or things that haven't even happened yet. And over time, that kind of inner noise becomes normal, so normal that silence starts to feel unfamiliar. But silence is not empty. Silence is where your soul begins to breathe again. Silence is where your heart stops reacting and starts receiving. And in this silence, something gentle is happening right now, even if you cannot fully describe it. Because you are not just sitting here randomly. You are being held in a moment that is bigger than your thoughts. A moment where God is not distant, not distracted, not unaware of what is happening inside you. He is fully present with you right now, not observing you from far away, but close to everything you feel, close to the thoughts you can't organize, close to the emotions you didn't have time to process, close to the silent exhaustion that you don't always talk about. And maybe that is what makes this kind of peace different from anything else you've tried before. It is not something you produce. It is something you receive when you stop resisting it. And I know, sometimes your mind may still try to pull you back into everything you were worrying about earlier today. That is normal. That is human. But you don't have to follow every thought that appears. You don't have to carry every feeling that rises up. You can let them come and let them pass, without holding on to them. Because right now, nothing in this moment is asking you to solve your entire life. This moment is only asking you to rest. Just for now. Just here. Just in this simple awareness that you are not alone. And as you stay with that truth a little longer, something inside begins to shift quietly. Not dramatically. Not suddenly. But softly. like a weight being slowly lifted from a place you didn't even realize was so tired. And in that softness, there is room again. Room for peace, room for stillness, room for God's presence to be more real than your worries. And maybe that is enough for this moment. Not all answers, not all clarity, just the gentle reminder that you are being carried even while you rest. And as you continue resting in this gentle stillness, I want you to slowly begin noticing something even more tender happening inside you. Something that doesn't need effort, something that doesn't need explanation. It is simply the quiet realization that you don't have to keep holding everything at once. Because for so long, your mind has learned a certain pattern, holding thoughts, holding responsibilities, holding concerns, holding emotions that never really got a chance to settle properly. And even when you try to relax, a part of you still stays alert, still stays prepared, still stays slightly tense, as if life might suddenly demand something from you again at any moment. But in this space, right here, nothing is demanding you. Nothing is pulling from you. Nothing is asking you to perform or prove or respond. And maybe that feels unfamiliar, maybe even a little uncomfortable at first, because your system is used to being needed, used to being active, used to being on. But God is gently meeting you in that unfamiliar place, not to overwhelm you with instructions, not to correct you, but to remind you that rest is not something you fall into by accident. It is something you are allowed to enter with trust. And trust can feel like a quiet release, a slow loosening of everything you've been gripping so tightly. Not because those things don't matter, but because you are no longer the one meant to carry them alone. And maybe this is where your heart begins to understand something it has been slowly learning all along. That peace is not found in having control over everything, but in knowing that even when you are not in control, you are still held. And I want you to imagine that very gently now, not as a forceful visualization, but as a soft awareness that everything you've been trying to manage in your mind is being placed into hands far more steady than yours. The situations you replayed, the worries you tried to solve late at night, the uncertainties that felt too big for you to understand, all of it slowly, quietly being released. And as that release happens, you may notice a kind of space forming inside your chest, inside your breathing, inside your thoughts, a space that was always meant for peace, but often got filled with noise instead. And in that space, there is no disappointment waiting for you. There is no pressure waiting for you. There is only presence, a steady, unchanging presence that does not panic when your life feels uncertain, a presence that does not leave when you feel weak, a presence that does not step back when your thoughts become heavy. And maybe for the first time in a while, you don't have to try to feel anything. You don't have to force gratitude or force calmness or force faith. You can simply be here, as you are, and let that presence be enough for you. And as your body continues to relax and your mind continues to slow down, something beautiful begins to happen quietly. You start realizing that you are not falling apart by resting. You are actually being restored. Not all at once, not dramatically, but gently, like something inside you finally remembering what it feels like to be safe, supported, and carried without effort. And in that quiet realization, your soul begins to settle just a little deeper, into peace that does not depend on your circumstances, but on the God who has been holding you through every moment of them. And as we continue a little further into this peaceful space together, I want you to very gently allow your thoughts to slow down even more, as if each breath you take is quietly telling your mind that it does not need to keep running anymore. Because sometimes the mind doesn't stop not because there is something urgent happening right now, but because it has become used to staying alert for too long. It forgets how to pause. It forgets how to soften. It forgets that life is not meant to be carried in a constant state of tension. And maybe that is why this moment feels so different, because nothing here is asking you to react. Nothing here is demanding your attention in a stressful way. Nothing here is pulling you into urgency. Instead, everything is slowly guiding you back into stillness, back into presence, back into rest. And I want you to understand something very gently, without pressure. You are not behind in life. You are not failing because you feel tired. You are not less faithful because your mind feels overwhelmed sometimes. You are human, and being human means there will be moments when your heart feels full and moments when it feels empty, moments when you feel strong and moments when you feel like you have nothing left to give. But none of those moments change how deeply you are known by God. None of those moments reduce His care for you. None of those moments make you any less held than you were before. Because His love is not measured by your emotional strength. It is not measured by how steady your thoughts are. It is not measured by how well you are coping on a given day. His love remains steady even when you don't feel steady. And maybe that is what your soul has been quietly searching for in all the noise of life. Something that does not change when you change. Something that does not leave when your energy drops. Something that does not depend on you holding everything together perfectly. And in this stillness, you may begin to sense that you don't actually have to fight for that kind of peace. You only have to allow yourself to receive it. Because peace is not something you earn through effort. It is something that flows when you stop resisting the one who is already near. So right now, in this moment, there is no expectation on you. You don't need to analyze your life. You don't need to replay your decisions. You don't need to prepare for tomorrow. You can simply rest in the truth that God is already aware of everything you are carrying. He is not surprised by your struggles. He is not confused by your situation. He is not overwhelmed by what feels overwhelming to you. Instead, He is steady, patient, present, and that presence is not far away from you right now. It is closer than your thoughts, closer than your worries, closer than your breath. And as you stay here a little longer, something subtle begins to shift again. The tightness inside begins to loosen. The urgency inside begins to fade. And your heart starts to remember that it does not have to stay in survival mode anymore. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to let go. You are allowed to simply be held without doing anything to earn it. And in that gentle realization, your soul begins to sink a little deeper into calm, not because everything is solved, but because you are no longer facing everything alone in the same way you thought you were. And as you continue to rest in this quiet space, I want you to let your attention gently soften even more, as if you are slowly stepping out of the noise of your own thoughts and into something calmer, something steadier, something that does not demand anything from you. Because sometimes the hardest part of the day is not what happens outside of us, but what continues inside us after everything becomes quiet. The mind starts replaying, the heart starts remembering, and the body still carries the echo of everything that felt heavy. But even here, even in that inner noise, there is no distance between you and God. There is no moment where you become unseen. There is no thought you have that goes unnoticed. There is no emotion you carry that is too small or too complex for Him to understand. And maybe you have spent a long time trying to explain yourself to life, trying to explain your choices, your feelings, your struggles, even your silence at times. But with God, there is no need for explanation in the same way, because He is already aware of the things behind your words. He understands what you meant even when you couldn't say it clearly. He understands the weight behind your silence, the hesitation behind your decisions, the exhaustion behind your effort. And that kind of understanding is something the human heart deeply longs for, to be fully known without needing to be fully explained. So in this moment, you don't need to search for the right thoughts or the right prayers. You don't need to organize anything inside your mind. You don't need to correct anything about how you feel. You can simply exist here, without performance, without pressure, without trying to be anything other than what you already are in this moment. And that might feel unfamiliar at first, because so much of life teaches us to stay busy, to stay productive, to stay in control. But rest teaches something different. Rest teaches you that you are still valuable even when you are not producing anything. You are still loved even when you are not achieving anything. You are still held even when you are not holding everything together. And as you breathe slowly now, you may begin to notice that your body is responding to this truth in its own quiet way. The tension in your shoulders may start to soften. The tightness in your chest may begin to ease. The thoughts that were once moving quickly may start to slow down, one by one, like waves gently losing their intensity as they reach the shore. And nothing about your situation outside has changed in this moment. But something inside you is changing. Something is learning that it does not need to stay in a constant state of alert. Something is remembering what it feels like to be safe without explanation. And in that safety, God is not far. He is not waiting at a distance. He is not observing you from somewhere else. He is here, closer than the breath you just took, closer than the thoughts you are aware of right now. And His nearness is not dependent on your awareness of it. Even when you feel it strongly, and even when you don't feel it at all, He remains the same, constant, faithful, present. So let yourself stay here just a little longer, without rushing forward, without trying to wake your mind up again, because this moment is not asking you to do anything. It is simply offering you rest, deep, steady, unearned rest, the kind of rest that reminds your soul that you are safe, you are seen, and you are still being carried even now. And as we move gently into this next part of the night together, I want you to notice how nothing is being rushed here. Nothing is forcing you forward. Nothing is pulling you out of this quiet space you are slowly settling into. Because one of the most beautiful things about God's presence is that it does not hurry your healing. It does not rush your emotions. It does not demand that you get better in a single moment. Instead, it meets you in layers slowly, patiently, like light slowly filling a room that has been dark for a while. And maybe that is what your heart needs most right now. Not pressure to change instantly, but permission to simply be in process. You have carried a lot that no one else fully sees. And even the parts people do see, they don't always understand the depth behind them. The quiet effort it takes to keep going. The mental exhaustion that doesn't always show on your face. The emotional weight that sits behind your daily routine. And yet, here you are, still moving forward, still trying, still holding on in your own way. And that alone says something powerful about you. Not because you are perfect, but because you are enduring. Because even in your tiredness, there is still a part of you that has not given up. And God has seen every single step of that. But tonight, you don't need to keep proving that strength. You don't need to keep carrying that identity of the one who must always stay strong. Because even strength, when held too tightly for too long, becomes heavy. And maybe that is why you feel this invitation inside you right now. A quiet invitation to release that constant pressure, to stop holding yourself in survival mode, to allow your heart to come out of that guarded place, even just a little. Not because everything is solved, but because you are safe enough right now to rest without solving anything. And as you breathe slowly, I want you to imagine that safety not as an idea, but as something real surrounding you. Not something far away, not something you have to reach, but something already here. The same God who carried you through moments you thought you would not survive, the same God who sustained you in days you thought would break you, is still here with you in this moment. Not as a distant observer, but as a steady presence that does not change with your circumstances. And maybe the hardest thing your heart is learning tonight is this: that you don't have to keep everything together in order to be loved. You don't have to stay fully in control in order to be cared for. You don't have to understand your entire future in order to be guided through it. Because God does not require your certainty to remain faithful. He does not require your clarity to remain close. He does not require your strength to continue holding you. So in this quiet moment, you can begin to loosen your grip again, just a little more, on the thoughts that have been repeating, on the worries that have been circling, on the need to mentally prepare for everything ahead. And as you do, something inside begins to soften again, not all at once, but gently, like your heart is slowly remembering that rest is not a danger, it is a gift. And you are allowed to receive it, right here, right now, without earning it. And as we continue gently through this quiet night together, I want you to let your mind settle even deeper now, like a lake slowly becoming still after the wind has passed over it. Because what often keeps us restless is not only what is happening in our lives, but how constantly we try to carry it in our thoughts. The mind replays, the mind predicts, the mind tries to prepare for every possible outcome, and without realizing it, it begins to live in a state of constant heaviness. But right now, in this moment, nothing is asking you to stay in that state. Nothing is demanding that level of alertness from you anymore. You are allowed to come down from it, slowly, gently, without guilt, without pressure, without needing to explain why you are tired. And maybe for a long time, you have mistaken exhaustion as something you need to push through, instead of something you are allowed to listen to. But even your exhaustion carries meaning. It is not a weakness, it is a signal. A quiet message that your soul has been active for too long without enough rest. And God is not ignoring that signal. He is not disappointed by it. He is not asking you to ignore it either. Instead, He meets you in it with understanding, the kind of understanding that does not rush you, but gently invites you into restoration. So as you sit here, I want you to imagine something very simple again, that every thought that feels heavy does not need to be held tightly. You don't have to push it away, and you don't have to keep it close. You can simply let it pass, like clouds moving across a quiet sky. Because not every thought deserves your energy. Not every worry deserves your attention. And not every concern needs to be solved in this moment. Some things can simply be placed down for now, so your heart can breathe again. And in that breathing, something sacred begins to happen. The space inside you that was filled with tension starts to open slightly. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but softly, like a door that has been closed too long finally being opened just enough for fresh air to enter. And that is what God's peace often feels like, not a forceful change of everything around you, but a gentle change within you. A quiet reminder that you are not trapped in your thoughts. You are not defined by your worries. You are not limited by what your mind is trying to figure out tonight. Because even now, as your thoughts slow down, God is still present with you in every layer of your awareness. In the thoughts you can see clearly, and in the thoughts you cannot even put into words. In the emotions you understand, and in the emotions that feel confusing. In the calm moments, and in the restless ones. He is not separated from any part of your experience. He is holding all of it with a steadiness that does not shake when you feel unsure. So let yourself remain here a little longer, without needing to move ahead, without needing to fix anything mentally, because this is not a moment for solving. It is a moment for resting, a moment for allowing, a moment for remembering that even when your mind is tired, your soul is still held. And in that truth, you can begin to settle even more deeply into the quiet assurance that you are safe, you are seen, and you are carried right now in the loving presence of God. And as we continue softly into this deeper part of the night, I want you to notice how even your awareness is beginning to slow down now. Almost like everything inside you is learning a new rhythm, a quieter rhythm, one that does not rush, one that does not chase, one that does not constantly reach for the next thing. Because for so long, your mind has been trained to stay ahead of everything, always thinking, always preparing, always trying to stay one step in front of uncertainty. But here, in this moment, nothing is ahead of you that you need to catch. Nothing is behind you that you need to fix. You are simply here, and that is enough. And maybe you don't always realize how much energy it takes to live in that constant state of inner motion. Even when your body is still, your thoughts can be running miles ahead. Even when your day looks quiet from the outside, your inner world can be full of movement, full of noise, full of invisible effort. And that is why this kind of stillness feels so different, because it is not asking you to manage anything. It is not asking you to respond. It is not asking you to figure anything out. It is simply inviting you to rest without conditions. And as you allow that invitation to sink in a little more, I want you to gently remind your heart that you are not in control of everything, and you were never meant to be. That truth might feel uncomfortable at first, because we often connect control with safety. But real safety is not found in controlling everything around you. It is found in trusting the one who already holds everything together. And maybe that is what your soul has been slowly learning through all the moments you could not fully explain. That even when you don't understand what is happening, you are still being carried through it. So right now, you don't have to mentally walk through tomorrow. You don't have to replay yesterday. You don't have to calculate outcomes or prepare responses or rehearse conversations in your mind. All of that can gently step aside for a while. Not because those things don't matter in life, but because they were never meant to sit on your heart at the same time, especially not in a moment like this when your body is asking for rest. And in that space of letting go, something very quiet begins to take place inside you. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is more like a soft unburdening, a gradual release of what has been sitting too tightly inside your thoughts. And with each small release, there is a little more room to breathe, room to relax, room to simply exist without pressure. And that space is not empty in a cold way. It is peaceful. It is gentle. It is the kind of space where your soul can finally stop bracing itself for everything. And even here, in this softness, God is not absent. He is not watching from a distance. He is not waiting for you to become stronger before he draws near. He is already here, already close, already fully aware of everything your heart is carrying in this moment. And His presence does not increase or decrease based on how well you are holding things together. It remains steady, constant, unchanging. So you can let yourself sink even deeper now into this quiet awareness that you are not alone in this space. You are not forgotten in this moment, and you are not expected to carry anything more than what you already have. And as that truth gently surrounds you, your heart can begin to rest in a way that does not depend on answers, but simply on presence. And as we gently continue into this deeper stillness of the night, I want you to let your thoughts become even softer now, as if they are slowly moving further and further away from urgency, from pressure, from the constant need to respond. Because there comes a point where the mind doesn't need more information, it simply needs space. Space to slow down, space to breathe, space to stop carrying everything at once. And maybe that is what this moment is quietly giving you right now. Not answers, not solutions, not direction for everything ahead, but space. A sacred kind of space where your heart is allowed to stop striving for a while. And in that space, I want you to notice something very gentle. You are still here. Even after everything you carried today, even after all the thoughts that passed through your mind, even after all the emotions you didn't fully express, you are still here. Not because you had to be strong enough in every moment, but because you were held through every moment. There is a difference between surviving on your own strength and being sustained through grace. And maybe when you look back honestly, you will begin to see how many times you were sustained even when you didn't feel strong enough to sustain yourself. And so right now, there is nothing for you to prove, nothing for you to fix, nothing for you to accomplish in this moment. You don't have to measure your progress. You don't have to evaluate your life. You don't have to mentally organize everything that still feels incomplete. You can simply be here, in this quiet awareness, allowing your mind to slow down without resistance. Because rest is not something that happens when everything is perfect. Rest is something that begins when you stop demanding perfection from yourself. And maybe your heart has been holding on to so many invisible things throughout the day. Small worries, silent concerns, unspoken questions, things you didn't even fully notice yourself carrying until everything became quiet. But now, in this stillness, you are beginning to feel the weight of those things more clearly. And instead of trying to push through them, you can begin to gently release them. Not all at once, not with pressure, but slowly, one breath at a time, one thought at a time, one quiet letting go at a time. And as that release continues, something inside you begins to soften. The tightness you didn't even realize you were holding starts to ease. The urgency that once felt constant begins to fade into the background. And in its place, something quieter begins to rise, a sense of calm that does not depend on circumstances changing, but on your awareness shifting. A shift from carrying everything alone to remembering that you are not alone at all. Because even now, in this very moment, God is not distant from you. He is not disconnected from your thoughts or your emotions. He is not unaware of the quiet weight you've been carrying. He is fully present, fully attentive, fully near. And His nearness is not something you have to earn through effort. It is something that remains steady even when you feel tired, even when you feel uncertain, even when you feel like you have nothing left to give. So you can allow yourself to rest here a little more deeply now, without rushing ahead, without trying to control the experience, without needing anything to be different than it is. Because in this quiet space, you are not being judged, you are not being measured, you are not being pushed. You are simply being held, gently, faithfully, completely. And as we continue gently into this quiet space together, I want you to allow even more softness into your thoughts now, as if every layer of tension that is still remaining inside you is slowly being given permission to loosen, without force, without pressure, without effort. Because sometimes the deepest kind of rest doesn't come when everything is solved. It comes when you finally stop asking yourself to carry everything at once. And maybe you have been doing that for so long that you didn't even notice how heavy it became. The constant mental holding, the emotional balancing, the quiet effort of trying to stay okay even when parts of you felt anything but okay. And right now, in this moment, you don't need to stay in that mode anymore. You are allowed to step out of it. Not because everything outside has changed, but because something inside you is being gently invited to soften. And that invitation is not demanding. It is not rushing you. It is simply there, like a quiet hand extended toward your tired heart, saying without words that you don't have to keep gripping so tightly anymore. Because what you are holding is not all yours to carry alone, even though at times it has felt that way. And maybe one of the reasons your mind feels tired is because it has been trying to solve things that were never meant to be solved in a single moment. Some things in life unfold slowly, some answers come gradually, and some peace is not found through understanding everything, but through trusting even when understanding is incomplete. And that kind of trust can feel unfamiliar when your mind is used to searching, analyzing, preparing, and predicting. But here, in this stillness, you are being shown something different. A way of resting that does not depend on clarity. A peace that does not require certainty. So as you breathe slowly now, I want you to imagine that every breath is a small release, not of your responsibilities, not of your life, but of the pressure you placed on yourself to hold everything perfectly. You are not losing control. You are simply allowing yourself to stop over-controlling what was never meant to be carried with that much tension. And in that letting go, even if it feels subtle, something begins to shift inside you. The mind that was once loud begins to quiet. The heart that was once tight begins to open just a little. And the body that was once alert begins to settle into something softer, something safer. And even here, even in this gentle unraveling, God has not moved away from you. He is not waiting for you to become calmer before he stays close. He is not stepping back until you feel more put together. He is here with you in the exact place you are right now, in the middle of your tired thoughts, in the middle of your quiet emotions, in the middle of everything you cannot fully explain. And his presence is not fragile. It does not depend on your emotional state. It remains steady even when you feel unsteady. So you can allow yourself to stop resisting this moment. You can stop trying to mentally organize everything. You can stop rehearsing what comes next. And instead, you can simply rest in the awareness that you are being held in a way that does not require your effort. A way that does not demand your strength. A way that does not disappear when you feel weak. And as that truth slowly settles deeper into you, your soul begins to understand something it has been needing for a long time. That peace is not something you reach at the end of everything being perfect. It is something you receive right here, right now, in the presence of a God who has never stopped holding you, even for a single moment. And as we continue even deeper into this quiet and gentle space together, I want you to let your thoughts slow down now in a very natural way, without trying to control them, without trying to push them away, just allowing them to soften on their own, like waves gradually losing their strength as they reach the shore. Because that is what rest often feels like when it finally begins to settle into the heart. Not a sudden silence, not a forced emptiness, but a slow fading of noise that no longer needs your attention. And maybe for the first time in a long time, you are not being asked to hold everything at once in this moment. You have carried so many invisible layers throughout your day. Things people saw, things people didn't see, and things even you didn't fully process while they were happening. And now, in this stillness, those layers begin to show themselves gently, not to overwhelm you, but to finally be acknowledged. Because sometimes the heart doesn't realize how much it has been holding until everything becomes quiet enough for it to notice. And when that awareness comes, it is not meant to create more pressure. It is meant to create space. Space to breathe. Space to release. Space to stop pretending that you are not tired when you actually are. And in this moment, I want you to hear something very softly. You are not behind in life. You are not failing because you feel overwhelmed sometimes. You are not weak because your thoughts get heavy. You are simply human. And being human means there will be days when everything feels manageable, and there will be days when even small things feel heavy. But none of that changes the way you are held by God. His care for you is not based on your emotional strength. It is not based on how well you are coping. It is not based on how calm your mind is tonight. His care remains steady, constant, unchanging, even in the middle of your most unsteady moments. So right now, you don't need to fix anything within yourself. You don't need to analyze your emotions. You don't need to judge your thoughts or correct your feelings. You can simply allow yourself to be here without resistance, without expectation, without pressure to become anything other than what you already are in this moment. And in that acceptance, something very quiet begins to happen inside the heart. The tension that was once held tightly begins to loosen. The inner noise that felt so loud begins to fade into the background. And the mind that was constantly reaching forward begins to return gently into the present. And as you stay here a little longer, you may begin to notice that peace is not something you are chasing anymore. It is something that is slowly meeting you where you are. Not because your situation has fully changed, but because your awareness is shifting from carrying everything alone to recognizing that you were never alone in the first place. There is a presence here with you that does not leave when you are tired. A presence that does not withdraw when you feel uncertain. A presence that does not change based on how strong or weak you feel. And maybe that is what your heart needed most tonight. Not more answers, not more clarity, not more effort, but the gentle reminder that you are already held, already seen, already known completely. And in that truth, you can begin to rest even more deeply now, letting go of what you cannot carry and allowing yourself to be carried instead. And as we gently continue into this deeper stillness together, I want you to notice how your mind does not need to hold on so tightly anymore. As if something inside you is slowly learning that it is safe to relax without everything being solved first. Because so often, we believe that peace is something that comes after everything is fixed, after every problem is resolved, after every question is answered. But in reality, peace is something that can meet you right here, in the middle of everything still being unfinished. And maybe that feels new, maybe even unfamiliar, but it is real. It is available to you even now. And as you sit in this quiet space, you might begin to realize that your thoughts are not as loud as they were before. Not because you forced them to stop, but because they are naturally slowing down when they are no longer being fed with pressure. It is almost like your inner world is beginning to understand that it does not need to stay in a constant state of alert. And that realization alone brings a kind of softness, a gentle easing that cannot be created by effort, only receive through surrender. And maybe surrender is a word that feels heavy sometimes, but here it is not heavy at all. Here it simply means allowing yourself to stop carrying what was never meant to rest entirely on your shoulders. It means recognizing that you are not the source of control over every outcome in your life. It means trusting that even when you cannot see the full picture, there is still a hand that holds the story of your life with wisdom far beyond your understanding. And that truth does not remove responsibility from your life, but it removes the unnecessary weight of trying to control everything at once. And in this moment, I want you to very gently bring your awareness back to your breath, not to change it, not to control it, but simply to notice it. Each inhale coming in quietly, each exhale leaving softly, almost like your body already knows how to return to calm when you stop interrupting it. And as you breathe like this, you may begin to feel a subtle shift inside, a sense that you are not as tense as you were a few moments ago. Not because everything has changed around you, but because something within you is learning how to loosen. And even now, in this soft unfolding, God has not stepped away. He is not distant from this moment. He is not waiting somewhere far off for you to become more composed or more stable. He is here, in the exact place where your thoughts are slowing down, where your emotions are settling, where your body is beginning to rest. And his nearness does not depend on your awareness of it. Even when you feel it strongly, and even when you don't feel it at all, he remains the same steady presence holding every part of your life together. So you don't have to keep scanning your mind for what still needs to be fixed. You don't have to rehearse tomorrow or revisit yesterday. You can simply stay here, in this gentle awareness that you are being supported in ways you cannot always see. And as that truth settles more deeply into your heart, something very quiet begins to replace the noise, a sense of being safe enough to rest without explanation, without effort, without fear. And as we continue softly into this deeper part of the night, I want you to allow your thoughts to slow even more now, not by forcing them, not by controlling them, but by simply not giving them the same urgency they had before. Because sometimes the mind keeps running not because there is something urgent happening in the present moment, but because it has learned a habit of staying alert, staying prepared, staying slightly tense even when nothing is happening right now. And here, in this quiet space, you are being gently reminded that you don't have to live in that constant state of readiness anymore. You can pause. You can soften. You can let your inner world rest without needing permission from anything outside of you. And maybe as you sit here, you begin to notice how different this feels compared to the rest of your day. During the day, there is movement, responsibility, interaction, decision-making, a constant flow of things asking for your attention. But now, everything around you is quiet enough that you can finally hear what has been inside you all along. The feelings you didn't fully process, the thoughts you pushed aside, the quiet exhaustion that didn't always have space to be acknowledged. And instead of pushing it away again, you are being given a different invitation. The invitation to simply notice it with gentleness, without judgment, without pressure. And in that noticing, something begins to shift. Not all at once, not dramatically, but slowly, like a weight being adjusted rather than suddenly removed. Because healing in the heart rarely feels loud. It feels subtle. It feels like release happening in layers. It feels like your breathing becoming slightly easier without you realizing when it changed. It feels like your shoulders dropping just a little more than they were a few minutes ago. It feels like your thoughts are no longer pulling you in so many directions at once. And as that soft shift continues, I want you to remember something very gently. You are not required to carry everything in your life with equal intensity all the time. Some things can be placed down, even temporarily. Some thoughts can be left unanswered for now. Some concerns do not need to be solved in this exact moment. Life does not require you to be in problem-solving mode every second of the day. There is space for rest. There is space for stillness. There is space for simply being. And even in this simplicity, God is not absent. He is not watching from a distance while you try to figure everything out. He is not waiting for you to become more organized or more stable before he draws near. He is already here, present in this exact moment, fully aware of everything your heart is carrying. And his presence does not rush you. It does not pressure you. It does not demand that you become anything other than what you are right now. So you can let go of the need to mentally control everything for a while. You can release the urge to keep rehearsing outcomes or replaying possibilities. You can allow your mind to become quieter without fear that something will go wrong if you stop thinking so much. Because even when you are not actively holding everything together, your life is still being held with care far beyond your understanding. And as you rest in that awareness, something deep inside begins to settle more fully. The mind stops reaching forward so much. The heart stops tightening around what it cannot control. And the soul begins to rest in something steady, something unchanging, something that remains with you even when everything else feels uncertain. And as we continue gently into this quiet space of the night, I want you to let your awareness soften even more now, as if everything inside you is slowly being given permission to stop holding itself so tightly. Because one of the deepest reasons the heart feels tired is not only because of what is happening in life, but because of how long it has been holding everything without pause. Thoughts, emotions, responsibilities, expectations, memories, all quietly layered on top of each other, day after day, until even rest starts to feel unfamiliar. But right now, in this moment, nothing is asking you to carry all of that at once anymore. And maybe you are beginning to realize something very gentle here, that you don't actually have to keep solving your entire life in your mind in order to be okay. You don't have to mentally organize every detail of tomorrow. You don't have to replay every situation from today to make sense of it. Because not everything in life is meant to be processed all at once. Some things are allowed to unfold slowly. Some things are allowed to remain unanswered for now. And some things are simply meant to be placed down so your heart can breathe again. And as you allow that truth to settle a little deeper, you may notice how your body responds in its own quiet way. The tension that was held in your chest may begin to ease slightly. The tightness in your jaw or shoulders may begin to soften without you forcing it. Your breathing may become a little slower, a little more natural, as if your body is remembering what calm feels like when it is not under pressure. And this is not something you are creating, it is something you are allowing. Because peace is not something that comes from controlling everything around you. Peace is what naturally rises when you stop resisting the presence of the one who is already with you. And maybe that is what your soul has been needing all along. Not more effort, not more control, not more mental strength, but permission to stop striving for a moment and simply rest in what is already true. That you are not alone in this. That you are not carrying everything by yourself. That your life is not dependent on your ability to hold it all together perfectly. And even now, as your thoughts continue to slow, God is not becoming more present because he was never less present. He is here in the quiet. He is here in the stillness. He is here in the spaces between your thoughts where you are not even thinking clearly anymore, just existing, just breathing, just being. And his nearness is not fragile. It does not disappear when your attention drifts. It does not weaken when your emotions feel heavy. It remains steady through every shift within you. So you don't have to force anything in this moment. You don't have to chase peace. You don't have to try to feel a certain way. You can simply allow yourself to rest exactly as you are, with all your thoughts, all your feelings, all your unspoken weight. And in that acceptance, something very quiet begins to happen. Not a sudden change, not a dramatic shift, but a slow settling of the heart into safety it may have forgotten for a while. And as you remain here a little longer, you may begin to feel it more clearly, that you are being held, even now, gently, faithfully, and completely, by a presence that does not let go. And as we continue slowly into this deeper stillness together, I want you to let your mind become even quieter now, as if every remaining thought is no longer something you need to follow, but something you can simply observe from a distance without getting pulled into it. Because one of the most peaceful things that can happen in a tired heart is when thoughts stop feeling like commands and start becoming just passing movements, like wind moving gently across a calm surface, without disturbing what lies underneath. And maybe for a long time, your thoughts have felt louder than they needed to be, stronger than they needed to be, constantly asking for your attention even when you had nothing left to give. But right now, you are not required to respond to every thought that appears. You are not required to solve every feeling that rises. You are not required to give meaning to everything your mind tries to bring up. Instead, you are being invited into a very different way of being, a way where you can simply notice and release without holding on. And that may feel unfamiliar at first, because the mind is used to engagement, used to reaction, used to control. But peace often begins exactly where control is gently released. And as you stay here in this softness, I want you to realize something very simple, but very important. You are not your thoughts. You are not your worries. You are not the passing emotions that come and go throughout your day. You are the one who notices them, the one who experiences them, the one who carries a deeper identity that is not defined by temporary states of mind. And in this moment, that identity is being gently reminded to you, not through effort, not through pressure, but through stillness. And in that stillness, something sacred is happening even if it feels quiet on the surface. The inner noise that once felt so dominant is slowly beginning to lose its intensity. Not because you are forcing it away, but because you are no longer feeding it with attention in the same way. And when the mind is no longer constantly engaged in holding everything, it naturally begins to settle, like a storm slowly giving way to calm weather. And even here, in this gentle unfolding, God is not observing you from a distance. He is not disconnected from your internal world. He is fully aware of every layer of what you are experiencing right now. The thoughts you can name and the thoughts you cannot name. The feelings you understand and the feelings that feel unclear. And his presence is not affected by the complexity of your inner world. It remains steady within it. So you can allow yourself to rest without analyzing this moment. You can allow yourself to breathe without trying to change anything. You can allow yourself to simply be here without needing to improve or adjust anything about your experience. Because in this space, you are not being evaluated, you are being held. And as that truth gently settles deeper into your heart, something begins to shift again, not dramatically, but quietly. The mind stops reaching so far forward. The heart stops tightening so much around uncertainty, and the soul begins to rest in something simple, something steady, something unchanging. The awareness that you are safe in the presence of a God who has never left you, and who is still holding you right now. And as we continue gently into this deeper part of the night together, I want you to notice how even the effort to try is beginning to fade now. Almost as if something inside you is slowly remembering that rest was never meant to be something you struggle into, but something you are allowed to fall into when you finally stop resisting it. Because for so long, your mind has been used to holding tension as a kind of protection, as if staying alert somehow keeps everything under control. But here, in this quiet space, you are beginning to learn something different. That letting go is not losing control of your life. It is simply releasing the illusion that you were ever meant to control everything in the first place. And maybe that realization feels both strange and relieving at the same time. Strange, because your mind is used to carrying responsibility in a very active way. Always planning, always thinking ahead, always trying to prevent things from going wrong. But relieving, because deep down, there is a part of you that is tired of carrying that weight alone. A part of you that has been waiting for permission to rest without feeling guilty for it. And right now, that permission is already here, not as something you have to earn, but as something that is already being offered to you in this stillness. And as you allow yourself to settle a little more into this moment, I want you to gently notice how your inner world does not need to be perfectly quiet for peace to exist. There may still be thoughts in the background. There may still be emotions moving softly within you. But peace is not the absence of everything happening inside you. Peace is the presence of something steady holding you through it all. And that steady presence does not panic when your thoughts are loud. It does not withdraw when your emotions feel heavy. It remains close, constant, unchanging. And even now, as you sit here or lie here in this quiet space, God is not distant from what you are experiencing. He is not waiting for you to reach a calmer version of yourself before He stays near. He is already here, fully present within the reality of your tired mind, your heavy thoughts, your unspoken emotions. And His nearness is not dependent on how strong your faith feels in this moment. It is not dependent on how peaceful your mind is. It is grounded in something far deeper, His unchanging love for you. So you can stop measuring how well you are doing in this moment. You can stop evaluating whether you are resting correctly or thinking correctly. There is no performance required here. There is only presence. And as you begin to accept that more gently, something inside you starts to loosen again. The pressure to hold everything together begins to soften. The mental urgency begins to fade, and your heart begins to realize that it does not have to stay in a constant state of effort in order to be safe. And maybe this is what your soul has been longing for all along. Not more answers, not more control, not more mental clarity, but a place where it can finally stop striving and simply be held. And as that awareness deepens within you, you may begin to feel it more clearly now, that even in your tiredness, even in your uncertainty, even in your silence, you are not alone. You are not forgotten, and you are still completely surrounded by a presence that never leaves you. And as we continue gently into this quiet unfolding of the night, I want you to stay with this softness a little longer, without rushing toward anything, without trying to complete any thought in your mind. Because even the need to complete everything is something your soul is slowly being invited to release. And maybe that sounds simple, but for a mind that has spent so long trying to stay ahead of life, trying to predict, trying to understand, trying to secure every outcome. Simply staying present can feel like a completely new way of being. But here, in this space, you are not required to stay ahead of anything. You are not required to prepare for every possible scenario. You are not required to mentally rehearse tomorrow before it arrives. Instead, you are being gently invited to return to something much simpler, something quieter, something more real than all the thoughts that try to pull you forward. You are being invited back to this moment, right here, right now. And in this moment, nothing is demanding your urgency. Nothing is asking you to solve it immediately. Nothing is requiring you to figure out outcomes that are still unfolding in time. And because of that, something inside your heart may begin to soften in ways you did not expect. The tight grip you've held around certain worries may begin to ease just slightly. The constant scanning of your mind for what's next may begin to slow down. And in that slowing down, space begins to open, space for rest, space for breath, space for peace. And as that space opens within you, I want you to notice something very tender. You are still here. You are still safe. You are still held together, even without the mental effort you usually depend on. Nothing collapses when you stop overthinking. Nothing falls apart when you stop rehearsing every detail. Life continues to be held in ways far beyond your awareness. And your presence here in this moment is already enough. And even more gently than that, I want you to remember that you are not alone in this stillness. Even if your thoughts feel quiet, even if your emotions feel uncertain, even if you are not fully sure how to describe what you are feeling, you are not walking through this inner experience by yourself. There is a presence with you that does not shift with your awareness. It does not come and go with your clarity. It remains steady even when everything within you feels like it is still settling. And maybe that is difficult to fully explain with words, because peace like this is not always something the mind can define. It is something the heart gradually recognizes. A sense of being carried without needing to understand how. A sense of being held without needing to control anything. A sense of being guided even when the path ahead is not fully visible yet. So you can allow yourself now to stop reaching for understanding. You can allow yourself to stop mentally organizing everything. You can allow yourself to stop trying to prepare for every unknown. Because in this moment, nothing is required from you except presence. And even that presence is already being supported by something greater than your effort. And as your breathing continues to slow naturally, you may begin to notice a deeper kind of stillness forming within you. Not forced, not created, but gently revealed as you stop resisting it. And in that stillness, the heart begins to remember something it may have forgotten during the noise of the day, that it is safe to rest, safe to let go, and safe to simply be. And as we continue softly into this deeper stretch of the night, I want you to allow yourself to rest even more fully now, not just in your body, but in the way you are holding your inner world. Because sometimes we can lie down physically, but still remain standing emotionally and mentally, still carrying conversations in our mind, still replaying moments from the day, still preparing responses to things that have already passed. And without even realizing it, the body is resting while the heart is still working overtime. But right now, you are being gently guided into something different, a kind of rest where even the inner world is allowed to sit down for a while. And maybe as you notice this, you begin to realize how much energy it takes to stay mentally engaged with everything all the time. The constant thinking, the analyzing, the trying to understand why things happen the way they did, or what might happen next. And while those thoughts often feel important in the moment, there is also a quiet truth beginning to emerge here. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every question needs an immediate answer. Not every feeling needs to be solved right now. Some things are allowed to simply exist without your constant effort to fix them. And in that realization, something begins to shift inside you in a very gentle way. It is not a sudden change. It is not a dramatic transformation. It is more like a soft loosening, like a rope that has been pulled too tightly finally being allowed to relax a little. The pressure you didn't even realize you were carrying begins to release in small, almost unnoticeable layers. And as that happens, your breathing may naturally become slower. Your thoughts may naturally become less urgent. Your inner world may begin to feel a little more spacious. And in that space, there is room for something very important: safety. Not the kind of safety that depends on everything being perfect in your life, but the deeper kind of safety that exists even when things are uncertain. The kind of safety that is not created by control, but by trust. And maybe that is what your heart has been learning throughout this entire journey tonight. That you are allowed to exist without having everything figured out. You are allowed to rest without resolving every problem. You are allowed to pause without losing anything important. And even here, in this quiet unfolding, you are not alone in what you are experiencing. There is a presence with you that is steady, even when your thoughts are not. A presence that does not withdraw when your mind is busy or when your emotions feel unclear. It remains here, constant and unchanging, not as something you have to chase, but as something that is already holding you. And maybe you don't need to fully understand that right now. Maybe it is enough just to let it be true in this moment. So as you continue to breathe gently, I want you to imagine that every breath out is a small release, not of effort, but of pressure, not of responsibility, but of tension. And with each breath, you are allowing yourself to come back a little more into this simple awareness that right now, in this moment, you are safe enough to stop striving, safe enough to stop solving, safe enough to simply rest in what is already here. And as this awareness deepens, you may begin to feel something very subtle but very real, a quiet sense of being carried. Not because everything is resolved, but because you are no longer holding it all alone. And in that quiet realization, your heart can finally begin to settle into a peace that does not depend on circumstances, but rests gently in the presence that has been with you all along. And now, as we come to the final part of this quiet journey together, I want you to stay here with me just a little longer. Not because anything is unfinished, but because sometimes the heart needs a few extra moments to fully settle into the peace it has slowly been receiving. Because peace is not always something that arrives all at once. Often it arrives gently, layer by layer, thought by thought, breath by breath, until one moment you realize that the heaviness you were carrying doesn't feel as sharp as it did before. It hasn't disappeared in a dramatic way, but it has softened. And that softening is where rest truly begins. And maybe as you lie here now, you can begin to notice how your relationship with your thoughts is changing in this very moment. The thoughts are still there, but they are no longer holding the same authority over your heart. They are no longer pulling you into every direction at once. Instead, they are slowly passing in the background, like distant waves that no longer have the strength to pull you under. And in that space, something beautiful is happening. You are returning to yourself again. Not the version of you that is overwhelmed or pressured or trying to manage everything at once, but the deeper version of you that simply exists, that simply breathes, that simply is. And in that simple being, there is a quiet reminder that you were never meant to live in a constant state of internal tension. You were never designed to carry every burden with equal weight every hour of the day. You were never meant to hold tomorrow while today is still unfolding. And perhaps that is why this moment feels different, because for once, you are not trying to reach ahead of your life. You are allowing yourself to stay inside it, right here, right now, without resistance. And even as you rest in this stillness, there is something deeper surrounding you, something steady, something faithful, something unchanging. The presence of God is not something that increases or decreases based on how clearly you feel it. It is not something that comes and goes with your emotions. It is constant. It is near. It is with you in the quiet, in the noise, in the clarity, and even in the confusion. And tonight, that presence is not asking anything from you. It is not requiring performance. It is not waiting for perfection. It is simply here, holding you with a love that does not shift with circumstances. So you can rest now without fear of losing control, because true control was never yours to begin with. You can let go of the need to mentally stay alert, because nothing is going to fall apart simply because you allowed yourself to rest. You can breathe a little deeper now, knowing that your life is still being guided even when your thoughts are quiet. And in this gentle surrender, something sacred is happening. Not loud, not dramatic, but deeply real. Your heart is being reminded that it is safe. And as your body becomes heavier with rest and your thoughts become softer, I want you to hold on to this simple truth as you drift forward. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. And you are not carrying your life by yourself. God has been with you through every moment that brought you here, and He will remain with you in every moment that is still ahead. His love has not changed. His presence has not left. And His peace is still available to you right now, even in your quietest breath. So as this journey comes to its gentle close, you don't need to hold anything anymore. You don't need to solve anything anymore. You don't need to carry anything into the next moment. You can simply rest, deeply, peacefully, and fully, in the care of a God who never sleeps, never forgets, and never lets you go. And if this moment has brought even a small sense of comfort to your heart, consider staying connected with this space. Come back whenever your soul feels heavy, whenever your mind feels restless, or whenever you simply need a reminder that you are not alone. Like, subscribe, and allow these words to meet you again whenever you need peace. May God's presence surround you tonight. May His peace guard your heart, and may you sleep deeply in His love. Amen.